What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Counting Wisdom podcast. I was thinking about what to make this podcast about, and I was thinking of making the podcast on just reflecting on relationships. And I was thinking, what do I want to talk about in relationships? I think when I was growing up in my relationship endeavors, I feel like when I was younger, it was a little bit more easy to just make friends and whatnot, because you're going to high school or elementary school or middle school, and you see that they you have interactions with people on the everyday basis. But I think where we tend to make our friends now these days is either at college or at work, and I think our thought, instead of just choosing to be friends with anyone, I think our thought has to be, do I really want to have this person around in my life, in my personal life, other than just, where I work? Because sometimes people, when they bring what they do from home, they bring it to their work site. They bring it to where they stay, and sometimes that doesn't always fly. It doesn't always fly with me when, you have people talking and it's not the best type of talk. Or, you have people who are, trying to entice you to do something that is not kind of good for you to do. And so, yeah, it gets kind of challenging when you're wanting to make friends with people, but you don't always have that friend that is just so relatable to kind of how you want to live. And so I found that most of the friends that I made, I feel like some of my friends have led me in a wrong path in a way, and it's by choice. But I think we have to really have that wisdom to make a better choice about who we hang out with, who we spend our time with, who we are getting influenced by, because that really makes or breaks kind of how we think and what we do. For the most part, it's really we have to be very sensitive to making good decisions. And I think that's what I'll cover. I'll cover just, okay, how do we make good friends? What friends are we going to be spending time with, in those relationships? I think one thing that we can't neglect on doing is learning about how we should be in relationships. I think sometimes, if we learn about, history, or we learn about science, we learn about biology, we learn about philosophy, those are all cool subjects, very insightful, great subjects. But sometimes I think we neglect, unless you're like a communications major, I feel like we neglect on learning about how to be a good friend and how to operate in relationships. And so that's what I've been trying to do lately. I've been trying to gain knowledge for when I do have that opportunity to be around more people than just my family. to really be that person that is listening to others, that is hearing their heart and hearing, kind of like where they're coming from. And then also just being able to, have that lifestyle that others are looking forward to looking forward to being around. I think if we are always just constantly searching, and not having a proper, preparedness for life, I think if we're always just searching for things in life and not being prepared for what we do know we're going to find, and I guess I'm speaking of, when we get to our final destination of heaven, I think we need to have a preparedness for us. I think some people live in that searching mentality where they're like, I can go out to that party, or, I think that's how I was living, instead of putting it on other people. I think I was living more like, in a way of, I can go party, I can not be completely in my right mind, taking some sort of substance or something and having it kind of calm you down or mellow you, or think those goals. But, you get the idea of just being around people that, that are not living that same type of lifestyle. And I think that's our disservice. So I think we really have to make sure that we are living in a way of preparedness, of readiness for the Lord to come, for living and meeting our Maker, for being in heaven. I think that we don't need to search for God so much of like traveling to different places, because God is here and we have the Bible, and that's where we can search for God. I think if we are, when I say search, I'm talking about leaving Earth. Like sometimes I hear about like Elon Musk, who wants to go to Mars and spend his last days in Mars. And the movie Prometheus, which is one of my favorite movies. It's not the favorite because of just, the idea of all the aliens attacking them. That's not really why I like the movie, but I like the movie because of the exploration that it shows on how they go and try to find their Maker. And I like that part, but we don't have to go and search for God on a distant planet, or, we don't have to leave Earth to find the peace that we're looking for. We can really realize we can search for God through the scriptures. It's important to search for God and seek for God, but I guess I mean that, just in the right way. So let's continue. So I think one of the biggest things in my relationship issues have been communication. Communicating to someone either a problem or communicating to them, something a change that has happened. I feel like sometimes relationships, we don't like change, like people in general. And I think really taking out that time, if you hear this podcast, really take out that time to search on YouTube or Google, read an article in Google, through your Google search, about what you need to do to be a better communicator. What you need to do to be a better husband or boyfriend or girlfriend. And I say boyfriend just in case, this podcast reaches more guys than anything. I think we as men need to realize that there's certain ways that successful people communicate, and there's ways that unsuccessful people communicate. And are we practicing communication that is not for successful people? And I think that's one thing that I have been doing, is sort of taking advice from everybody, and the first Psalm in the Bible, it says that blessed is the person who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, and does not sit in the seat of the scornful, meaning that we have to take advice from good people, and then we also have to, not disdain the instruction that we're given. Disdain means to count it off, like to not do it, to think it worthless, to even follow. And I'll read Psalm 1 for us. I'm sure everybody has at least made it to Psalm 1. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also shall not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper. The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind drives away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. That was all of Psalms 1. And so those verses are so powerful that we have to know what God requires of us. We have to know God's law. We're thinking about it. We're studying it. We're spending time on it. And I think that that is important in our relationships, is we're getting our relationship right with God. God, he wants us to live up to the standard that he has given. And, he wants things to go well for us. I keep mentioning this verse, but, and if you're a young person, and even if you're an adult, it says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you, and you may live long on the earth. Ephesians 6, 1-3. I actually never really heard that verse until I was actually in college. So I don't know if any children are really getting that Bible verse and hearing that. But I actually never heard it until I was an adult almost. And so even Jesus sometimes calls his disciples children. So I think that means that we're supposed to just obey our parents in general, no matter how old we are. If we still have parents, we're supposed to obey them. And then it will go well for us. We'll see God make a way. He'll honor, that we are being obedient. And I think that has to go into relationships as well. I feel like if we find ourselves having these tragedies in relationships, there's some things that are accidents or just chance. But there's some things that it's literally God, making a statement if something bad happened, he's like, I literally don't like what you just did or what you did. And this is for me personally. Personally, I believe that sometimes I'm in situations where, it's supposed to be working out better, but you know, either I have messed up or I didn't listen at some point, and I'm trying my best to listen, but, somehow I didn't listen, and, something happens to me where, this problem occurs, and it becomes very difficult for me. And, this is something that I feel like as if God is saying, like he's disciplining me. I believe that God will give me a second chance. He is the God of second chances. But at the same time, I think we have to really get wisdom in the fact that, okay, we are supposed to be obeying. How do we obey? Do you look up things like that? Like how to be more obedient, how to deny yourself, and really just listen to the Lord. And I guess I say all of this to say that it all ties into having good relationships. I think that if we have a good relationship with the Lord, that we'll all also be having good relationships with people. They say they bundle Jesus's rules into, I think you should know them all, but they bundle his rules into love God, love your neighbor. And that is so good, because I think if we love God, we'll be able to know what we need to do in order to love people. But I think we also have to just search those things and search and find out what we need to be doing. So we're going to take a bit of a break, and then I'll come back to you and we'll finish up this discussion on relationships. Okay, we're back. So let's read about the Good Samaritan. So, this is a classic example of how we're supposed to be treating our neighbor, the people around us. Then Jesus answered and said, and this is starting at verse 30 of Luke 10, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a certain priest came down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Likewise a Levite, when he arrived at that place, came and looked and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, and he set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day, when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, "Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I come again, I will repay you." So, which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to him who fell among thieves? And he said to him, "He who showed mercy on him." Then Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise." So we're supposed to show mercy to the people that are in our lives. That means that we're not supposed to be getting angry with them. We're not supposed to be yelling or saying anything mean to them. And we're not supposed to be harming them in any way physically. And so I have found myself getting into arguments with people. That's been a thing that I feel like struggled with. And it's not because of, but anyway, have you ever found yourself, getting into an argument with a person, or maybe your significant other or your spouse, and you're like, man, this is something so trivial, And I think the real deal is that we as people might be hurt by something. We might be angry. We might be bitter about just a whole bunch of things. And I think, finding freedom is really just giving that to the Lord and watching Him work. He's the great psychiatrist. He's the great, doctor. He's the great physician, where He knows what to do. He knows how to heal our heart. He knows how to heal a broken heart. He knows how to fix things that we don't know. And so that is something that we should really work on, is, really being able to, just give our cares and our worries over to the Lord, and I think one thing that we should all do is just ask the Lord, hey, how do I be better in my relationships, and then also Googling relationship questions, YouTubing what relationship questions, and I think if we practice all these things that I've mentioned in this podcast, that it will set us on a better firm foundation to really be successful. But we have to realize that, sin is lurking. There's some things that happen that are just inevitable, and it's like we do all that we can do, but some things, it's just like Job. Sometimes bad things, they just find us. We could be doing everything we can, like even, you could be talking the best to people, and, sometimes it's just like some sort of unfortunate event that happens that you're like, what in the world has this happened to me? Like, this is so random. Like, I know I might be, not the best person, but, I know I don't deserve this type of treatment, And so sometimes it's just the way the world that we live in is dying, and we're waiting for God to restore it. But here's a hopeful thing, is that even for Job, God brought about a great blessing for Job. God, can bring your relationships around, and He can work in your life where, we won't be just in hurt anymore, and we won't be hurting others anymore. So anyway, I hope this podcast was helpful. I hope you gathered something. It was kind of all over the place. In my mind, it felt like it was all over the place. But I just wanted to have sort of a conversation. And, maybe you thought of something, that is good, for just talking and having a relationship with others, and maybe you thought of something that sparked a thought about relationships. So God bless you, and I will talk to you on the next podcast. See ya. Hey, what's up, everyone? I just wanted to remind you to please visit the washye.com website. That's WASHYE.com for more content You can also check out our Instagram and our Twitter with links through that website. And please, if you would like to contact me at any point, you can go to our contact page, and you can also send me a text, and I will be able to respond to that. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next podcast.